Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Pow Annual 1971. Now this is one of the more unusual Pow Annuals. 1969, 68, etc. had Spider-Man, Sergeant Fury, etc. A few cartoon character ones, and the subsequent ones had sort of westerns and other tales as well, and a mix of stories. But this one was all superheroes and supervillains, but not ones that you would be familiar with at all, even though there is sort of resemblance to some characters. I'm not going to mention those, who they obviously resemble. You can probably put your own guesses to them very easily, but you've got here various characters there, and you can see they obviously given the name Norstad, Aqua Avenger, Marksman, Master of All Weapons, Mr. Tomorrow, Criminal from the Future, the Phantom, Framed, Fighting for Freedom, etc. Now it's about 78 odd pages, and there's the first one, and the artwork is generally pretty impressive all the way through. It's a mixture of colour as well as sort of this red and white and those sort of things. Very weird the annuals did that. I don't know why it just didn't go for full on colour or just full on black and white sometimes. But the artwork is superb, and the stories are actually quite genuinely enjoyable. Though, fortunately, because there's only a couple of pages, the stories are never particularly developed. The origins are very quick, so you're straight in. And I don't even know why they bothered telling the origins sometimes. You might as well just... However, he's got a few powers there, obviously, which he would have developed, I'm certain, if there'd been future stories. The villains are not particularly brilliant. That's always the trouble with lots of these stories. You think, but still, very readable. Aqua Avenger, this is a pretty daft one, I must admit. It's got a character there, suddenly gives these powers, and of course he turns around and says, yours will be unlimited powers in the crusade. Well, I must admit, it didn't seem very unlimited most of the time. He sort of like struggles quite a lot all the way through the story as far as I could see. There's a scene there, he's battling someone that's got unlimited powers. Anyway, Aqua Avenger! All that sort of stuff. Wait, not so fast, Nemesis. And obviously he turns around and explains things, and obviously he sees the error of his ways. So Mr. Tomorrow, now I really genuinely enjoyed that, and the artwork is really good. I think that's just really first rate. And of course he's sent back on time, and of course there's a glitch. Again, this would have been they could have done an ongoing series with this. I mean, obviously you've got this sort of criminal court has obviously found... They send people back. They make the occasional glitch. They put them in wrong times. Now you could imagine a very interesting storyline. And it's actually well told as well. And also with a nice sort of conclusion how they resolve it. I'm not certain why people want to rule the world. It always seems baffling. They always get these villains that always seem, I want to rule the world. Why? Why would you want to? What's the point? Anyway, the hunter and the hunted. And again, some lovely artwork again. Again, you've got this red and white artwork. Don't know why they did that. So some of it's in colour. Now this one's slightly unusual. The artwork is good. Probably many of these would have worked better if they had been in black and white, because I think the colouring sort of like ruins it a bit, sort of makes it a bit more confusing, personally. So again, you've got very quick origin there. You've got there gets took the full charge. The man working on the platform, that sort of thing. Something like that. And then, of course, he works out he's got some various powers. And again, I'm certain if they had continued this storyline, we would have found out more about these powers, and you've got this standard old traditional villain there. I'm not certain what his name is. The stylishly well guarded hideout, etc. Sinister smiling figure, no less. And you obviously got him battling away. He's got his minions. You always have to have your minions doing your work. I don't know if he calls them... Use your megalift rays to carry as much... Oh, serfs. He calls them serfs. No way. Well, we're not going to work for you anymore. Now, this one would have been really good. This was also 1975. Lovely way it says 1975. Obviously, a few years in the future. Maybe they're hoping that the story... But you've got these great characters here. Man with muscles. We've got man... Power of his mind can lift various things. And you've got Google Grant... Only 13, but his powers of projecting pictures into the minds of other people is quite fantastic. So that's pretty good. A lamppost, wahey! And that sort of thing. And also another guy who can transport them. And it's brilliantly, very good artwork as well. Superb artwork. All, obviously, European artwork. And I'm certain many can tell who they are. I'm not very good when it comes to telling the artwork of artists, but there's You can find online all the various names that are suggested, because unfortunately I never put the names. It would have been lovely. Why didn't they just write the names? Also the writer as well. Should have done. They didn't. And you got this one here. Marksman versus the Saboteur. Probably one of the weakest stories, I have to say. But still, you know, a sort of story that probably would have fitted quite nicely in the 1950s kind of stuff. So, got the guy, especially when he's got a bullseye on his head. Not always the best thing to actually have that. But I suppose Marksman, I suppose he didn't have a big M. That would have been even better. But the Phantom, I love that one. Look at that pose. That pose is just, yeah. And this apparently it's Chicago, I think. Probably not. No, London's Elite. No, I got that one wrong. But some are in London, some are in Chicago. So it's a mix of locations. Surf City is one of them, which clearly is New York. I don't know why they call it Surf City. But and you've got the Bat. And I'm not going to point out various characters. And the Phantom. And this one's really quite good. Norstad of the Deep. Just love that one. That's very surreal, very odd. And that one's in colour. I'm not certain why some in colour. And yet again, I think sometimes these would have worked better actually if they'd been in black and white. The colours always make them slightly murkier. Though you've got a nice watercolour effect there at the back, or marker's pen. I might be wrong completely on that. Which is terrible to admit. Could be watercolour. This one's very good. Even though it's a daft story where he sort of, the mind is linked, he's linked up. This human has come to my aid. My strength returns. And this, of course, once again, I had the power to hate. Really? Why don't you just go and do something nice and useful? No, power to hate. The Time Rider. This was a good one. And actually quite good because it's, this kid, obviously, well, not kid, youngster, goes off and he's working on a time machine. But he also spent some time reading it up. Learning about the time, reading also, getting himself prepared, which is something quite often in time travel stories they never do. And it always annoys me immensely. You think if you're going to have a time machine, you're going to work, at least study the period you're going to go back to. Or of course, you could always have a twist where you go back to a different time than the one you think you're going to go back to, and that would be more of a... However, actually, genuinely, all these stories are actually quite good. Like I say, it's some really first-rate artwork all the way through this. And should be able to get copies of this, I would have thought. I think in really good condition that these go for quite expensive prices. But this one's pretty battered. I can't even remember where I got this one from. Probably online, I assume. But quite often these turn up at local markets and things. You can often pick them up. And they're not very expensive. But I say, worth checking out. And if you're into sort of like unusual superheroes that never went on to become great sort of megastars, this book definitely will be one for you. And it is a pity that no one's developed these stories more. Maybe there could be a possible one. They've been obviously bringing out loads and loads of brilliant sort of treasury of British comics, and I love those ones. Maybe they could bring out one of this. All these stories. Just develop the stories, find out what happened to these characters. Anyway, I love this. Pow Annual 1971. Totally recommended.